Hey guys, Emils here, and today we're taking a look at and building a kit from 1991. This is the Italeri AV-8B Harrier II, number 193. I picked this kit up at a local model shop that I discovered on a walk through town, and this model stood out to me. And now that this week, the Harrier is officially being at the end of its service with the United States Marine Corps, what better time to release the full build of this beautiful model. There are a nice number of parts, and while some of them have already fallen off the sprue, they look pretty okay. Now, there is cleanup to be done, and a lot of parts, as you can see, there are not pressed in panel lines, but more like extruded out. That's what you get with an older kit. I started by building the cockpit, which was quite fast, and I decided to build up the size of the plane too. I had to glue on the air intakes, which were a little troublesome, but the cement helped melt the gap. The wing also had some trouble with alignment, but I wasn't too bothered, and this kit really is just for me to practice some techniques in painting more than actually making it as realistic and accurate as possible. Now, with a lot of the building done, I primed the parts that needed to be painted before gluing the sides together. I started by applying a gray base coat to the cockpit and painted the seat tan. I painted the fan housing white and the fan itself with a plate mail metallic from Army Painter. I also painted the walls of the cockpit, and after they dried, I just applied a black wash over the panels. I also did the same for the cockpit. Now, it might have been smarter to varnish in between, but with my experience with miniatures, I thought that it shouldn't cause too big issues. I also detailed the cockpit panels, but I will show those off at the end. Now it was time to scratch off the paint from the sides and glue everything together. Now this is where I really wished I had a thin cement, but oh well, have to work with what you have. The gear assembly is quite complex and made from a lot of parts, but somehow I got it to work. I also added the two middle gears and doors. This was finicky and also the most fragile part of the model, as I will come to find out. The pylons went on nicely, and it was time for some of the finishing touches before we could start painting. I put on the canopy to see how it looks, and I am really loving it. I added the gun pod and front nose bump, as well as more fuselage and wing details. I also assembled the weapons, but these I will be painting a bit later since I want to do some more research on how better to paint the weapons. And now, this looks quite dramatic, but I actually saw something similar done with airbrushing to get a more weathered and shaded look. I started applying the desert camo that I was inspired from, and well, it wasn't looking bad, but it still needs some work. I made a light blue and used a bit of off-white for the main colors, but these will change later. While it looked kinda good with the thin layers, I started adding more and more and more to the point where there was no more point of actually having them depreciating. Two thick layers, the paint probably started mixing between the layers, it ended up a bit of a mess. Now, the blue is much more saturated, but it will even out with the weathering. I hope so. I started painting some of the details like gear, nozzles, and flare dispenser. I varnished with Titan Hobbies gloss varnish and started applying decals, and this is where everything was starting to actually come together. I started with the top and bottom. Some of the decals did break, but I was able to fix most of them. The hardest ones to apply were under the wings, and this is where I wish I would have assembled it in parts, but for better or for worse, I got them on. My favorite ones were in the nose cockpit section. Before varnish, I actually started by using black pigment to add the smoky effect coming from the nozzles and around the gun pod, since these are the places that get the most heat and residue. I really like how the pigment looks, and this has worked out multiple times for me. Now, after a layer of varnish, I started adding some oil colors. I layered some turpentine on and then added blobs of burnt umber and black to add like the panel lines back almost. I used some more white spirit and blended some of it, and after it dried a bit, I started wiping in the direction of light. The brown added a nice look on the blue and white camo, and the shaded look is so beautiful. I pretty much followed the same procedure for the rest of the aircraft, and I was very satisfied with the result. Now, I did glue on the final glass bits like the cockpit and camera lens. The cockpit did get damaged from the cement at some point, and while this is not what I wanted, I think it doesn't take too much away from the final result. Also, my cat just stepped on the plane two times and broke off a pylon, and the gear broke both times. I just get to do some more maintenance on it now and again. Okay, enough talking. Now you get to see the final result.